Remember when the angry sci-fi modeler said he'd do one video a week? He lied. Thank you, Arnold, for that awesome intro, and yes, I did lie, because I have so many fucking pictures to show you. It'll take me forever for me to actually catch up to where I'm at. My model will be done. I'll be working on the next one before the last video is up. So without further ado, let's get this party started, huh? So first up are the nacelles. Now, I gotta light block these things because I'm gonna be lighting the nacelles. Now you'll notice that there are two little blue tape pieces on the inside part of the nacelle. That's because I'm gonna light block everywhere inside except for those two spots. The reason for that is I want light to shine through to make it look like there are spotlights on there. Now, in the modeling community, this is known as something called Raytheon lighting. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And here's what the effect is going to look like. As you can see, there's a nice little spot where the registry is going to happen. So then after this, I installed some lights. And here they are, all the lights, right? There are a lot of lights in here, yes. Normally people do Raytheon lighting with just one or two little bulb LEDs. I decided to put like a whole strip just to light them nice and bright so they really shine through. And as you can see in this picture, they do. But there's also these stupid ass hot spots. Yes, this piece is really transparent and it's really, really close to those lights, so you're going to get some nasty little hot spots. But I'll deal with that a bit later on. So the next few pictures here are just shots of close-ups of the Raytheon lighting, and since there's two nacelles, there's copies of each picture, right? Okay, so here the grills are primed and light blocked. The reason why I did this is because when a ship goes to warp in the movies, it's only the grooves in the nacelle grills that actually light up blue. The rest stay black, Euro, gray, whatever it's supposed to be, right? I find a lot of modelers, sometimes they actually keep the grooves dark and the raised areas lit. It's not really right, at least for me, so I'm going to try and keep it as true as I can in that respect. However, when I see people's photos or videos of what they do, it could just be the camera bleeding out the light and they're actually doing it right and I'm just a fucking moron. Anyway, so I had to paint that, and then I scribed out where the grooves were so the light could shine through, and the effect was pretty nice. However, the hot spots were still there, so I decided, okay, first I'm going to try and diffuse this thing by sanding the back of the grill inserts. It worked okay, however it wasn't enough, so I actually had to paint the back of the inserts, and I decided to do it white since the rest of the light blocking inside was white. The light will bounce around a bit more, diffuse it a bit better, and lo and behold, there it was, nice and diffused. And so after that I decided to glue these pieces into the nacelles. Now I had to use CA glue, right, because styrene and resin don't mix very well. So I was a little worried that if I was mishandling these nacelles I might accidentally pop the grill out with my thumb, or I should say I'll pop it in with my thumb. So I reinforced it with some hot glue, as you can see here. And because I can't file straight lines for shit, I have these lovely gaps that happen when I glue these nacelle grills into place. So I was going to apply some putty on it, but I didn't want putty all over the fucking place, especially on the grill that I just primed, right? So I took a little trick that I learned from Trekworks, actually, Boyd over there at Trekworks, and I used masking tape to cover the piece except for the area I wanted to put putty on. And that worked amazingly well, right? I had my doubts. I thought maybe when I lift the tape I might crack the putty, but no, it works really, really, really well. As you can see, the red putty wasn't enough, so I had to use some of my grayish putty, and that filled in all the holes properly. So next up were the nacelle pylons. Now these I had to modify a little bit to run my power down. I cut two little holes in the top part, and I also cut two grooves at the bottom, including a little rectangular cutout so my wires can go in nice and easily. I also noticed on the in the movie, I should say, there were spotlights on these pylons. Now, that's a little impractical to put a tiny little spotlight on there, so I decided, hey, let's do the Raytheon lighting thing. And so that's what I did, and here's the result. It looks pretty nice to me. Now, you might be saying, hey, asshole, there's not much room in there for some fucking lights. Don't worry, we got that covered. We're going to use some really, really, really tiny LEDs, and I'll show that a bit later on in this video. Now, I want to make sure that these nacelles were nice and straight on these pylons when they were glued, so I decided to glue the pylon halves to each of the nacelle halves to make it a little easier. So what you're seeing here is I'm gluing the pylons to the nacelle. However, I'm holding everything in place with tape to make sure that everything stays nice and straight. And it worked out, as you can see in this picture. Now, all I had to do was run my wires properly through the pylon, and lo and behold, everything worked right. So all that was left to do was to secure the wires in place, add the missing lights, like the little lights for the tiny spotlight, and for the blinking nav light that's in the back of the nacelle, and just seal it up in the end. However, when I place my lights in, let's say a nav light, I don't want the ambient lighting in the nacelle to bleed into the flashing light. So I actually have to light block that light. I have to make a little light box around it. But I glue my lights with hot glue. Now, to block that, I could use paint, but that would be a lot of fucking paint. Instead, I use something called tulip, right? A couple of model builders on YouTube refer to this stuff a lot, and it works really well. It has its use. Some modelers don't like using it as a light blocking agent because it's black, and if you use it on the outside of your model, it's going to show like crazy. But on the inside, it's a-okay, and it works well. So all the lights are installed and light blocked and ready to go. Time to seal this fucker up. As you can see here, I have everything glued in place and being held with clothespins. Lots and lots of clothespins. Cheaper than little C-clamps. Not as strong, but cheaper, and you can get a lot more of them. Very, very handy when you have to glue large surfaces together, because your hands are only so big, right? You can't clamp everywhere at once. So the next couple of pictures are just testing the lights, making sure it works while it's all clamped. As you can see, I got some light blocking to do. I thought the light blocking I did on the inside would be enough. Fuck no. This is a really big learning curve for me here, and I made my models way differently from this point on when I did this. So, as many modelers know, AMT kits are notorious for their shitty ass fits, right? Look at all that putty I had to use to fix that little gap. Look at this gap here in the front when you put in the front part of the nacelle. What the hell? You can't... This is garbage, right? Pure garbage, right? So I had to fill it in with some putty, but not just any normal putty. I use something called epoxy sculpt. This stuff is a two-part epoxy that you sort of mix together like Play-Doh, and I was able to push it in there with my toothpick and dental pick, and I was able to get in there nice and well without having to do any stupid sanding, and it's a little opaque, so it light blocked a little bit too. Now, when I was priming this thing, when I was priming it, I was thinking, I don't need to block any, I don't need to put any tape where I was doing any Raytheon lighting. No, I could just paint over that. When it's all nice and light blocked, I'll just sand it back out and it'll be perfect. Boy, was I fucking wrong. If you remember from a previous picture, there was all that light blocking issue. Well, the inside wasn't really well done. The light was still shining through even where I put the paint on the inside, so I had to sand out where the Raytheon lighting was, put some masks on, re-prime everything, take the masks off, sand off the hard edges a little bit, and then I was good to go. Once that was done, then I put some Euro Grey. I was testing with some Model Master paints. This is the first time I was using Model Master, so it's a little uncertain. It clogs on my airbrush very easy, but I managed to get the mixture right by now. So once that was done, I rescribed the nacelle grills, and the nacelle was done. Well, not entirely done. It was primed, ready for paint. Paint that I'd be putting on only after it was assembled with the main saucer. So now what you're looking at is one of those tiny LEDs I was telling you about. This is called an SMD, a surface-mounted diode. I believe this is the second smallest size that I can find online that I'm willing to solder by hand. Yeah, I soldered these by hand. It's a little tricky, but I'll explain a little bit further on. Here it is next to a 9-volt battery, so you can actually see how small these things are. Yeah, it's smaller than the Paragraphics photo etch I was using. Now, to solder these by hand, the secret is to use flux. Now, this took me a while to figure out. I mean, yes, I was using flux, but it took me a while to get the hang of soldering these things. But flux is your friend, right? I can't stress that enough in this case. You tin your wires, you dab a little bit of flux on the pad of the LED, and boom, your thing will be soldered on in no time. As you can see, these things are really, really, really bright. Now, I don't need just one. I need a bunch of them. I needed, I think, about 20 of them in total. So this took me a bit of time, right? I was still learning how to use it, but they work really, really, really well. And I actually used it in one of my later builds, which was on that Klingon D7. Here's a photo of it. I used 3 on the top bridge area part. It was really hard to fit a big LED in there, so I had to use some SMDs. Very handy at times. So on to the torpedo launcher, or the roll bar as people like to call it. I like to call it that too. It's kind of cool. So here's where I was last time. Now I need to run wires up into there, so I cut some grooves into the roll bar to run just a couple of wires up there. One for the torpedo launcher and one for the flashing nav light on the top. Now, to make the red torpedo launch effect, instead of putting red LEDs in there, I want to put white ones, just because I didn't have any red LEDs on the strip. So I used theater gel. You know those spotlights in plays when you watch them? Sometimes they're red, sometimes they're green, sometimes they're orange. They use like a cellophane gel plastic thing that they put right in front of the light to make it a different color. Now I was able to get some in red, and I just had to cut little rectangles and place them right in front of the holes, and it made a nice red effect, even with the bright, super bright whites inside. I decided to put in some white strip lighting inside to light up the torpedo bay. I thought one would be enough. It's bright on its own, and I'm using the super brights like I did in the nacelles. However, I found it wasn't quite enough to light the all 4 torpedo launchers, so I added a second one in there on the other side. It worked pretty well. The next thing I added was the nav light that blinks. Now this one I didn't use an SMD because I had a shit ton of space in there, so I used an actual really big 5mm LED. What the hell was I thinking? But I think that was the only thing I had on hand at the time, so I used that. So once that was all done, time to seal it up, and I used my clothespins again. Very handy. Now, AMT, we're used to gaps, but come on, these are huge as well. Look at the light shining through that huge amount of gaps. AMT shouldn't be called AMT anymore. I mean, they're known for gaps. They should be called GAP. Fuck. Anyway, once that was done, I filled in all the gaps, light blocked it, and I even primed it, and I even used my white primer on it, which is what is needed for the pearl coats, which I'll be doing in not the next video, the one after. So, as always, thanks for watching. I'm the Angry Sci-Fi Modeler. Tune in next time to watch me turn that big pile of crap of an AMT model into the lovely Reliant. I'll see you then.